want me to click it or do you want to click it ไปไหนคะ
ถ้าสิ้นเรานั้นโอเคไหมหรือว่าไม่สิ้น
I'm gonna start okay in 3 2 1 yeah yeah Hello, distinguished guests. Welcome to the Thailand Pavilion. I'm Gamunjan Osatanon, and these are the panelists for today. We are joining for the Youth Advocates of Culture for Climate Action Southeast Asian Voices panel. This panel is jointly hosted by the Siam Society, as well as the Climate Heritage Network, the Thailand Pavilion, as well as SICHA, which is the Southeast Asian Climate Alliance, Cultural Heritage Alliance, pardon me. And I'm very excited to introduce you all to today's session. Due to its uniqueness of the topic, I believe that we should discuss cultural heritage in regards to climate change. So without further ado, allow me to let the speakers introduce themselves shortly, what they do and where they're from. Celia, please go ahead.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Hi everyone, thank you for joining us at the Thailand Pavilion today. My name is Celia and my Vietnamese name is Anh Thơ. I am from Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I am with SICHA as a youth alum and I'm currently working as a collections coordinator at an art foundation in New York City.
Hi, good morning everybody. I'm Liza. I come from the Philippines. My work with cultural heritage, I work in the university where I teach cultural studies classes. And I'm also involved as a youth director at the Southeast Asian Cultural Heritage Alliance. And I also work for the Philippine government.
Hello everyone, my name is Supicha, you can call me Mesa. I am a researcher at CMO SPAFA and also a youth alum at SICHA, the Southeast Asian Cultural Heritage Alliance as well. And my background in architecture and World Heritage Studies. Nice to meet you all.
I missed the worst. Okay. Hi, my name is Kun Singh. My full name is Thep Dongchan Buntidet. Currently, I am PhD candidate in Resources Management and Development in Thailand. My background is related to the people and cultures. I'm from Luang Prabang, Laos.
Thank you so much. And if I could have the next slide, please. Just a short disclaimer, whatever is discussed here is based on our personal opinions only. It does not entail the opinions of any organizations involved, nor our countries. So without further ado, let's jump right into this panel. This panel is about culture and its relevance to heritage as well as climate. So I wonder, from the panelists' personal experiences, are there any experiences in general that has been both informed by climate and culture in any of your daily lives or your work? Would anyone like to take the question?
Actually, talking about the culture and climate, we often see the ancestor wisdom from our senior people, especially in Southeast Asia, where is the culture and natural heritage is more related together. And why is the culture and climate is related? Because in Southeast Asia, people still realize on the natures in their daily life. So before come here, my friend, she got the typhoon before come to alive into the crop. So nowadays we suffering a lot from the natural disaster that we never had before. Also in Southeast Asia, not just a typhoon, but also water flooding, the climate change, so the farmer cannot make the productions on the seasonal as well. So we see that is modern solutions that try to adapt into climate actions. But something that we would realize again, how can the ancestors, they keep the climate, they keep the resource since now than we have. And just a decade that we think that we are development, but we have suffered a lot on the resources, suffer a lot on the climate. Now, this is the resource and this is the thing that we're going to give to these generations or our next generations. That is from my perceptions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Quincy. Would anyone else like to take the question?
I think in terms of culture, I mean, we all live in our culture. We live it every day. It's something surrounding by us. But for the climate, I have to admit that it was like hit me a little bit later than when I perceived with the culture, because the knowledge in climate like came a little bit after when I was in school already. Like earlier there will be like rain, typhoon, but I might not recognize it as like a climate change or climate issue yet. But when I get into like education system, like that hit me really hard. Like, oh my God, we are having some issue, which also provokes similar question as what Kun Sin like say, like, oh, we have been doing all right for some period of time, and something must be going on, that this kind of be an urgent thing that we have to like come together and really take an action. So that's how I perceive like education time and when I was born, like we live in our culture in Southeast Asia.
Well, for me, my initiation with cultural heritage actually started when I was in university. A friend of mine did a research on indigenous textiles. And during that time, I was a journalism major, and I was really curious about writing stories about culture. So we went up to the northern part of the Philippines, and then I learned about a weaving community there. But what struck me in that experience was that young people are torn between they're torn between having to do their weaving practices or going to school. So I thought, shouldn't it be merged together? And I felt like young people shouldn't have to make that choice to choose between cultural heritage, practicing cultural heritage, and actually gaining access to education. And so that started my advocacy for cultural heritage, learning more about the indigenous communities in my country, because I come from the Philippines, and we have a lot of indigenous communities. It's even more than 100 indigenous communities. And most of them, of course, require protection. And along the way, protecting indigenous communities also means that protecting their natural environment. And so in a way, that's how these two advocacies become interwoven. So here we are now. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Liza. In the same vein, my background is in social justice, so I care, at the core of my being, I care about people first and foremost. And just, I think in climate action, we often say, oh, indigenous peoples are people who do climate mitigation work. But how can indigenous peoples keep doing that work if their culture is oppressed and dominated, and they're not given a livelihood and can't go on to live? How do we keep highlighting indigenous people's role in climate action while we oppress indigenous cultures at the same time? So for me, that is why culture is so important to climate action, is because indigenous peoples do most of this work all over the world in every community. And as a person, as people, you need culture to live on. And so just paying attention to that to the culture and just maintaining it for everyone, especially people who are marginalized, is so incredibly important to climate action.
Thank you so much for your insightful sharing of personal experiences. I wonder, because everybody has a different origin or pull towards the climate advocacy movement, what is your personal pull towards the movement? What inspired you to take action, apart from all the experiences that you've mentioned about climate and culture? What is the starting point in getting you involved in climate advocacy in the first place? Would anyone like to take this on?
Okay, so since the microphone is with me, so I'm going to answer. Well, for me, the Philippines is a very beautiful country, but also at the same time, the geographic location is quite vulnerable to a lot of natural disasters. Over the years, we have experienced typhoons, earthquakes. Actually, last night, before I went here, we experienced quite a strong earthquake. So before flying to Dubai, there was an earthquake situation. And so going back to the natural disasters, since I also started working with indigenous communities, doing research, I learned about how an indigenous community in the Visayas region, they're using their ancient wisdom to actually combat impact of typhoons, for example, or climate change, because of their wealth of knowledge, for example, in reading the wind, the patterns of the wind, in being able to interpret the language of animals, and how by being able to, in a way, predict natural disasters, they're able to prepare, because in terms of natural disasters, preparation is very, very important. So I think that was how it started with me. That was my pull, because as I delved more into the ancient wisdom of indigenous communities in the Philippines, I learned more and more that the solutions that we're actually trying to find can actually be found not just in the present, but also in the past. And so there we are.
So from my point of view, it's a little bit related to my background, which is architecture. We have been learning a lot in architecture school, to build houses, to learning about style, any like iconic architecture. And then I kind of found that it was a little bit that the urban area and also places, we evolve and then we kind of use similar type of architecture again and again in the places that even the north, the south, it looks similar. And in some places, it's creating a lot of problem. For example, near the riverbank, in the Chao Phraya River, where I live in Bangkok, they like changing a lot of houses. And then when it's the flooding season come, it's kind of already like vulnerable for the water level that raise and everything. And when you like study deeper to the condition of the place of the area, there used to be like still houses from the above the Chao Phraya River up north to Ayutthaya and further up. So that kind of houses were like kind of demolished, cleaning up by development plan and stuff. And I feel like, the issue of people having flood every year, and then how can this architecture keep like repeating and coming and taking place while our ancestor type of architecture or the local type of architecture were consumed by this kind of new thought, and then it doesn't really kind of answer when we have this issue of like high sea level and everything, the water is coming, and we still like keep doing whatever practice that we have from school. So as an architect myself, like I kind of think that, oh my God, I have to do something. I have to like think in different way. So I go to my grandma's house, and then that community is a still house community, and we have been doing all right. Like we have different layers, we have different floor. We can adapt when the water came. We can like escape when the water is too high. We can like come and use that space for other things when the water gets low. So it's quite like resilience in a sense. And then I thought like, wow, is that something that I can get into? And then it can give an answer to these, not like just evicted someone, but maybe giving a chance or learning from the past. That's why I get into this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think being in Southeast Asia, we are particularly vulnerable to sea level rises. I think having the looming threat over our head that by 2050, Bangkok, Jakarta, and Ho Chi Minh City is going to be underwater. And so having that threat just hovering above here really spurs you into action. And I also remember vividly when I was 5, it was flooding really bad, and I was carrying sandbags up to the front entrance, and I was blocking the flood water with my grandmother. And I remember on another occasion where Ho Chi Minh City was flooding, my mom thought that the flood water got into the electricity and that I have actually touched the water and got electrocuted and died. And she was panicking because she couldn't reach me by the landline, but I was chilling on a plastic chair. But anyway, I think that a lot of Southeast Asian, especially people who could not afford to live in the newer developments, have been dealing with floods ever since they were born. And I was one of those people, and so I was really aware of climate change looming threat over us. And also I'm motivated to act because I've been helping people to navigate red tape. That's another thing. A lot of indigenous peoples, be it in Southeast Asia or in other countries like in the US where I work, have to navigate a lot of red tape to, for example, get land to farm on or get their license to farm or things like that. And it's just really, it's a big burden and a big barrier to the climate mitigation work that, again, a lot of indigenous people have been doing for a long time. And so seeing those red tapes for myself really motivated me to be a part of this.
I totally agree with all of you. I can feel the emotions. I can feel your awareness on the story that you have just telling. But for me to be the conclusion, there are the 3 points that is inspiring me and driving me to have the passions about the cultures and climates. First one is traditional way of life. Because in Southeast Asia, the ancestors have lived many traditionals for us. I still can feel the warming hospitalities, and I have really much on memorable feelings. So this is just only my personal reason. I feel that it's going to losing on one day because before when I was young, it have a lot and then less than. So the first reason that driving me is personal reason. I face that it's going to losses. Secondly, is the way that now we calling ourselves development person, development country, or development the world. I have questions. The way that we're developing at the moment, is this the way that we have used our resource usefully, or we are wasting the resource that we have? And if this is the way that we're developing, is this on the right way? Why the climate is changing and we don't ignore it until now it's above 1.5? It's question marks. And lastly, I just want to represent the global citizens who might not producing the populations. They have to work, they have to live under the sunlight, and imagine that climate is hotter and hotter. So I just represent them to come here. And now the climate actions is going to be an actions, and we come here to call for action. That's why it's inspiring me to come here.
Thank you so much for those takeaways that I've received and you've shared beautifully with the audience. So to be able to summarize all of your points, some of the climate action or current works that you're doing may be inspired by personal experiences, but some is also inspired by our culture, our ancestors, our community knowledge, our local communities that have propelled us to come onto this global stage. So I wonder, apart from personal climate advocacy experiences, I do know that there are a growing expansion of youth advocate networks in Southeast Asia, particularly, who are very interested in climate action, who are also very interested in culture. I wonder whether you can touch upon whether there are any movements within your local communities or countries that are involved in the current space.
So in the community, like as an architect, I have like some of the friends who like we form together to find the answer together, because as I mentioned before, that the development that it seems to be like we seem to be having more and more these days, whether houses, whether like all the concrete wall protecting us from the flood. I doubt that it really gonna work. It's keep getting higher every year, and it's like my grandpa always said that it's used to be this length, and then when he grow up and it's already that high, and then when I grow up again it might be in the roof level high or something. So I and my friend were gathered in the Faculty of Architecture, and we kind of form heritage study center, we call, because we cannot just understand the culture alone. It's not just steel houses that gonna fix all the problem. So we kind of have to understand the nature of the place as well. So with the interlinkages of the nature and culture of the place, we study it all together, and then based on the place-based situation, we kind of come up with this heritage study center called the Nam Lom Phai, where it means like earth, fire, water, and wind. Sound like a rock band, but not really. We try to understand like the nature of the place before we can understand why our ancestors put this as a culture. How do people live? What is the condition of the place? This place is supposed to be the place for the flood, so we don't really put things up there. We live with the resilience option and something like that. So, for example, my heritage center, we collaborate with the journalists, the green journalists in Chulalongkorn University. Like it university-based kind of connection, because we learn about each other through school, and we collab to do some project based. Sometimes, for example, study the old maps and then see the transformation of the town from the architecture part, and then the anthropologists kind of go around the communities of different area in that maps in the map area, and then they kind of communicate. They're from Laos, they're from Vietnam, they're from different places. So that's why the different characteristic of the town will emerge like that. So there is a network, and it's from my point of view, it's emerged in university level. And then like my heritage study center, the Nam Lom Phai one is quite interesting one. If you want to know more, we can talk after this. And I think in different country, there are also like some youth advocate group as well. We have some colleagues joining us from Malaysia in the crowd right now, and I think there is a lot more in Philippines that I heard of.
Smooth transition there, right? Yes, in the Philippines, I would say that there are a number of youth groups, particularly in the university level, like a lot of youth organizations working in the field of climate change, also for cultural heritage. But I would say that there is still a line between the organizations working particularly for environment preservation and also for cultural heritage protection. There are quite a number of organizations that in a way already recognize the intersectionality of both, of harmonizing both environment and cultural heritage. But also, Southeast Asia Cultural Heritage Alliance also is a growing network that has come to marry both cultural heritage and the natural environment. This is why we're all here together. And individually in our countries, of course, we have specific advocacies and initiatives. But of course, together, we are growing and a network that is getting stronger and stronger in promoting both the protection of cultural heritage and the natural environment.
Just to top up with that, I think because we have to be together, it doesn't mean like we all architecture have to be together. The thing that I learned from what you just say, and then what my center, when we developed that, learn is that we cannot work with one discipline. It's like we cannot just work with an architect and then we focus on architecture all day. It's really boring. So the thing that I want to point out is that multidisciplinary group work is really needed. Maybe we need some data collection, we need some analysis of maybe sea level. We also need some people aspect of culture, intangible, for example. What have you do? What your grandma did on the weaving? Is it like helpful? The dyeing, is it like how natural, or is it gonna be harmful to the soil until next generation, or what? So this kind of thing you cannot work alone, no? So that to underline with what you just said, the togetherness in this situation to understand the nature, to understand the culture, because we are people, we are the agent between the two. and it really critically need to talk about this between different disciplinary. That's what I can underline with the both of the point raised. Is there anything you want to top up with that?
Sure. I mean, yeah, just to echo what you both have said, I'm seeing a lot of youth movements because their young people are more educated and they know more and they're more passionate than ever. And a lot of more awareness on what our cultural heritage is and also with the current issue of climate change. And what I'm most encouraged about is how many intersectional grassroots movement that I've seen growing over the past few years. People, young people especially, know that climate justice is connected to feminism and social justice and everything. And these movements that have been growing within the past years are really evocative of that. So yeah, really hopeful about the future.
There is a lot of the voice for the youth for climate actions in my country as well. I can't list all of them, but they open the opportunities for the youth generations to have their voice about their climate change. The Plastic Single Plastic Initiative, Green Initiative, development the green talents. But for myself to see the futures of the climate network, actually I couldn't see the futures. But I could imagine that how the youth want their futures want to be. That is important point. So, example like me, I didn't have the background as youth, but when I come to advocate about the climate, first one is my personal awareness. I just awareness of the air that I'm breathing, water that I'm drinking, and also the water that is touching to my skin. So it's starting with my awareness. And without that awareness, I don't think that we can have the perceptions on real climate actions. Do you agree with that? And then come back to my awareness, my perceptions, and then we can developments and we can go to involve with the social responsibilities about the climate one. The youth is the person have to be responsible of the steward resource that I have. So if you not act now, there might no there.
Thank you so much for sharing. So just to summarize, we have a lot of youth networks in the architectural space. We also have them in the social justice, feminism space. We also have them in just the awareness space that is generally interested in this topic. So I just wonder, what are your call to actions closing this panel? Of course, we're open for Q&A, but that will be for later. Right now, I just wonder, what do you want to leave the audience with from all the conversations and discussions we have had today on climate, culture, personal experiences that may have informed the movement? What do you want to leave them with?
Okay, I seem to be the starting point for this session. Okay, so for the call for action, I think the encouragement on communication between sectors need to be really established, especially between the nature and the culture sector, because there is a lot of opportunity to achieve like something that people love to say a lot, like sustainable development. But how can it be sustainable when the place wasn't considered much enough, when the nature wasn't been learned much enough, and then you just put something on it, like not knowing, and then like unintentionally maybe it can be harmful to the heritage place. And another thing is that the locals, because I'm so sorry, I love you, but like the term indigenous for me, I feel like it's a little bit interesting, but I love the term locals, no? Because everyone is a local of somewhere, no? And then that's why the knowledge of that individual locals area was so profitable for their own I don't know, like people or generations in that area to understand. So that another call for action is among us, friends, someone who is watching right now who is a youth, maybe you can learn about your local heritage more, and with that we can have the heritage-led development, which can we achieve the sustainable development that they have been talking about easier, because we have been like getting lost everywhere. And then maybe it starts from us, it starts from what we live in, which is a culture, would lead to understanding of the nature, and then we can like understand it all together and then develop it with our own knowledge that collectively collect by our ancestor. That would be another call for action, because it could be fun and interesting to see each different places move with resiliency and also with diversity of places. Yeah, because Southeast Asian, you know, we have a lot of things. We have to show it off.
I'd like to ask further, Mesa, you prepared a case study for the audience. Would you like to take this moment to share it with them?
Interesting. I'm not sure if it worked. Yeah. So you know that my heritage study center is called the Nam Lom Phai. It's with Ajahn Donaris Thanakoset from Faculty of Architecture, KMITL. We have the initiative to bond and bring back the spiritual of the place by connecting the nature and culture all together. With that, because we seem to do not understand the place much enough, so we find hidden key in the locals, as I say, you know, in different local area, different communities, to learn about the understanding of the connection of the nature and culture more. And then with that, we can see opportunity to achieve that sustainable development. That's the key idea of that. And also because we have too many places to integrate the heritage-led knowledge in that, because I heard about nature-based solution, culture-based solution, like how can you be only that and that, but not all together in holistic view, no? So like my school and my friend and then my professor and colleague here, we try to understand we are the people who is the agent. So we try to promote and talk to policymakers, our professor in different faculty to share the knowledge, because knowledge is the key to understand our human well-being through heritage-led development and to achieve what we want to sustainable development that can help with the climate change. And sometimes we found some key knowledge which can be a climate actions for different places, because it really is super diverse in our context. So that's what I do. Yeah, that's what we have been doing, integrating in every places, talk and stuff. So yeah, that is my case study. Thank you.
So any other panelists would like to share their call to action?
Okay, so since the mic is passed to me, so it's my turn. Okay, for me, I would like to emphasize on climate governance, on how young people can be effectively integrated into climate governance. I guess because there is this underestimation on the power of youth to actually contribute to policy making processes, that it's just that policy making processes can maybe just be for high level people. But then, of course, we recognize how in this conversation, we recognize how young people more and more are more woke now, particularly with the information revolution, with social media. And this level of awareness can actually contribute towards crafting effective and, most importantly, inclusive policies that would actually be effective. And not only that, but also integrating indigenous youth in the formulation of climate policies, because of course it's also young people are very much also knowledgeable about the conditions of their natural environment, about their cultural heritage. So there, I would just really like to emphasize young people's integration in climate governance. Yeah. Celia?
Liza, for a moment, would you like to share your case study or any personal experiences that is tied to this presentation slide?
Okay, so I just prepared, these are just basically photographs. The one I was talking about earlier, about my first interaction, or like maybe my eureka moment about cultural heritage. It's actually in this village. This is in the northern part of the Philippines. It's called Lubuagan. So as you can see, the photo of the girl, she's doing weaving. It's actually called backstrap weaving. It's called backstrap because it's wrapped on the back, and the weaver is sitting on the floor. It's not like your typical handloom weaving where you're sitting on on a wood, but this one is on the floor. So that's how the village looked like. So that's where it all started with me, and then another awakening moment for me, particularly in realizing that cultural heritage can actually be endangered, was when I went to this island in the Philippines. It's called the Aita Alabat Island, and the community members, they're called the Aita community, and they speak an endangered language. According to the UNESCO Atlas World of Languages that are in danger, there are only 10 members who speak that language. And it's very alarming considering that a language is like a mirror to the world. It's like another worldview. And it's also a portal for ancient wisdom. And if we lose that language, even if in a way, there's like a stigma because anyway, it's not a major spoken language, right? But the wealth of knowledge that is actually possessed by these communities, their knowledge about the environment, their knowledge about culture and community, if it's going to be lost, then how would we be able to access that ancient wisdom, right? After my encounter with that community, that is around, I think 2014 or 2015, I learned that the woman there on the left, she died after our interaction. So during that time now, there are probably 9 speakers of that language. So it's just one of the many cases, not just in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, but also in different parts of the world, where languages actually become endangered. And when we think about it, you'd probably think, anyway, it's linguistics, but it's also very much related to the environment as well. So it's interesting how when we talk about multidisciplinarity and how everything actually is connected, like one field can be connected to another field, not just in terms of challenges, but also in addressing those challenges. And so those are the little stories that I prepared for today for Call for Action.
Yeah, thank you for passing the mic and also for your very wonderful calls to action and case studies. I'll be brief, but my call to action is to the powers that be to provide youth with empowerment and platform for their voices. I've been really encouraged by Southeast Asia, especially from my country, Vietnam, to see the rise in cultural heritage events and also just more generally general awareness on climate change. But as Southeast Asian, our regions have gone through a lot of turmoil within the past century and a lot of conflicts and a lot of wars. And so I am hoping to see more encouragement to young people and more freedom for young people, especially to be able to give alternate, even dissident voices and to be able to be authentic to themselves as they're doing this really important work to our Mother Earth and to our climate.
That is so interesting and important. Not just like the student alone. I was also pinpoint that the teacher is also like a really, really important person, or like the community or an educator in general, to like decide something that would integrate this kind of knowledge from the locals into their maybe local curriculum or something, because like different local area have their different knowledge, right? So to be able to understand their own knowledge of the place, it would be really, really important, because like if you centralize everything and then like, okay, we have to learn this and then go everywhere, every people will think about the same thing and then they will like have the same mindset and knowledge, and then when they want to develop something, okay, let's do this, what do you think of, like, okay, with the same set of information, people are gonna decide the same thing over and over again, and we already know by this time that is not sufficient. So I would encourage educator and also like the teacher to integrate this kind of knowledge-based information about the culture and nature to the people who is your student, so that they can have this collective knowledge from the ancestor passing by and then into them, and then they'll be able to share with the friend from different diversity or different ethnic or different places. So that would be really important as well, in just to underline what Celia just said and pinpoint. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we have one of the book over here. If you want to, if the audience is interested, you can scan for the book about living with water. It's the culture of our Southeast Asian and is available in 6 languages in Southeast Asian, Malay, also Vietnamese. You can see one of the education tool over here. Just saying. Is there anything else that you want to finish up with your call for action, my dear Kun Sin?
For the audience here, I appreciate your time that you come to visit us today. It means that you have to put a list for call for the actions, for the climate action already. We appreciate you. But what I'm going to send the message for the audience in TV. Hi mom, hi dad are on TV. Now, if you would like to start about the climate change, I would like to tell you that all the UN states have already approved for the Sustainability Goal 17 and Past 1 for Laos. Your countries have already developed national action plans for the climate change. It's already. Now, it's your turn to make awareness, to create your perceptions, and take accountabilities. Let's put the cultures to the heart of the climate action if heritage is matter to you. World is not about fighting what the world have, but world is about creating that world that we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your call to action. Now, I'd like to open the floor to any questions that you may have. I'd be happy to give the audience the mic. Anyone would like to raise their hand, ask our lovely panelists a question? Yes.
Hello, I'm Chaipon from Thailand. Thank you for a very interesting discussion because it give me more clear picture in my head how culture can relate to climate change. So I have one case from Thailand to sharing with you. Last week we have a Loi Krathong festival. I know that Southeast Asia people maybe know Loi Krathong festival. So we floating Loi Krathong on the river or on the lake. So later people say that it might be pollute the water. So I love the culture, but I love environment as well. So on your idea, how we can keep both together, how we can save Loi Krathong festival and we can save nature and environment as well. Any idea from the floor? Thank you.
For me, it really go deeper than just culture because right now we just keep repeating what we have doing. Like, Loi Krathong is here on the calendar. Let's do Loi Krathong, you know. And the thing is that Loi Krathong is what is the core of Loi Krathong actually? Do people really know about Loi Krathong? Like just to worship, to doing what? So we paying respect, right? So the intention and the idea is about giving the respect to someone, give thanks to the river, like worship in the spirit of the water. So that kind of thing is it's the centric of how Loi Krathong is. So the methodology to follow in culturally, we float something into the water to be able to like give thanks to that. For me, I won't like limit that action like okay we do in the pool here and then like do something after because the tradition is the tradition for me, but how do we like eliminate or stop the it's not just we stop Loi Krathong entirely, of course, and it's not just we stop like floating thing in the water, but how do we like put it or make it more sustainable? I think we can use like the technology also to be able to like come up with some material that can be replacing, but we also like can also use some kind of the different method. I kind of we saw it in the media many times, but yeah, for me just to underline what the thing the question you asked, I would say that we cannot like just stop and then do it in the like the small children pond near our home and then no, it is not like a tongue. We worshiping to the spirit. We are like a people to like say thanks to someone. We're not like doing it in the pool and that's it. But how do we do it in the eco like love friendly way? That would be some kind of thing that we should fight out together, not just stop Loi Krathong, do it in the small pond or something. Yeah.
I want to add on, but seem like I have one more question from you. Firstly, I appreciate your questions. That is about the Loi Krathong. All Southeast Asia have the same tradition about Loi Krathong as well,นะคะ. I have background on the IT, so based on Kun Supisha solutions, IT can be get involved on the Loi Krathong one, especially on our youth generations or on the city people where it's far from the river. So technologies and digital will be get involved. Like yesterday, we see the sample in the domes that we've seen already. That is the first solutions. Second solutions is going to asking that do we provide enough touching point of the sense of the Loi Krathong enough to our children, to our young generation. Let I share my story. Loi Krathong in my village, in the river, there is no lighting. So the lighting that we only seen, that is the moonlight only. The old people will carry the children to hold the krathong. Something like that. In front of the parade, we will have the big monk from the temple. Big monk, and then the senior people, and then the old people, and then following by your age. When we go down to river for Loi Krathong, the monk will start to praying. And that praying, the old people will sit on the side of the children and tell them, what is this traditional about? So I have deeply feeling about the Loi Krathong on that one. But I understand that at the moment, the material that we use for Loi Krathong is totally affects about the quality of the water. So my answer to you will be, not answer to you, answer for me as well. First one, provide enough the sense of local traditional, really the deep sense. Secondly, after we provide that fully enough, the young generation, they will have creative, they will have the idea, okay, what should I put to be water, apart from the wooden, apart from the steel screw. That is the part of their generation, how they would like the river to be look like. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other question from the floor? I would be happy to pass on the mic. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana. I'm from Malaysia. I really appreciate that you mentioned indigenous, local and indigenous culture and preserving the knowledge. And like on paper, like the government would say that they are protecting indigenous peoples and that they have the best interests at heart. But in practice, I've been listening and engaging with people who are working with indigenous communities that it might not be the same, like it's different in reality. For example, like they might not give enough resources to them, or they are encroaching the lands for profit, for example. So like how can we engage with the government or our governments to kind of like tell them that this is important, indigenous cultures and knowledge are important, even though it might not profit them in any way? Or do we need to find some ways that preserving indigenous knowledge can profit, the nation, if that makes sense? Yeah.
I think it starts with dialogue. Dialogue is really, really important. It's also about recognizing that there's different levels of protecting indigenous cultures and indigenous communities. But it also starts with really integrating the perspectives of indigenous communities, because sometimes the policies that are created for the benefit of indigenous communities, the people who craft these policies may not even have indigenous communities who are part of that policy-making body. So it really helps a lot that there is a level of representation for them. And also at the same time, it helps a lot that making this sustainable but also inclusive, that it's not just in the top-down level, but really going deep down into the grassroots level and creating a space for them to be part of that conversation, and that it should not just rest in a conversation, but also transform these conversations into actions that would really benefit indigenous communities. And I believe that Celia would also have something to say about this.
Yeah, thank you, Liza. I definitely agree with working both ways in policy and also grassroots. Like, we need to work towards getting representation in the government, but we also cannot rely on government always. So we have to work both ways. And in Vietnam's case, there's a lot of emphasis on like the diversity, but like equality of all the ethnic minorities, for example. But the reality is the mainstream narrative is that a lot of ethnic minorities are poor, and so the central government needs to help them. And a lot of land seizures happen, and the native plants that have been planted there since forever are uprooted, and more profitable crops are planted in the lands that were traditionally owned by minority indigenous people. So we need to advocate for policy that are good for indigenous people in the government, but also we as people, as indigenous people, as young people, need to start our own grassroots movement that are detached from the central government in order to alleviate this burden on the government.
Sorry, and just to add, it also helps a lot to understand that local and indigenous communities are not passive anymore, that they're also engaged. Although of course, we also recognize that there are certain communities that also need self-determination. But we don't want to generalize, because there are also a number of indigenous and local communities who are really strongly fighting for self-determination.
I have a case study for that actually, because like the information that women in the community holds, sometimes it's treasure, sometimes it can like upended all the thing development that people try to integrate into the place. For example, there is I won't name the province, but we have the lagoon in Thailand, only one we have in that province in Thailand. And then that province happened to have their own traditional way of like fishing, you know. People in there, like they do fishing and then in different season, because the lagoon is one of the place with the like super diversity, you know. And then like the development that were put by local authority in some time is that making the water gate to block like in different water to like let them in or out, you know. And then when I was there for the interview, the women in the community after telling the story, and then tell me that, hey, can you go tell the authority that sometime we don't want to have a development that they claim, because it makes our life harder. Today I go buy fish, I have to go to supermarket, Tesco, Lotus, something. I have to go Carrefour, I have to go buy fish in the mall, because the fish don't come, because they put the wall in there and it's blocked, fish cannot go in. The fish will like, and then, the wall, where am I going? You know, like they cannot like plant their eggs in the lagoon anymore. So the fish, with that diversity, it lost, and the data collection people in there, they archived 100 species lost in that lagoon system alone, because they try to develop the area based on not the knowledge of the place, not the knowledge of the nature. So some of the time, my dear our audience who asked that question, people in the local area, they hold a lot of knowledge. In the sense that they understand that heritage place, they know what fish to get in different seasons, they know how to get this and that, and then they don't have to buy food, you know, it's food security already. But with the development that doesn't understand, that disrupt the balance of nature and this culture, it kind of make their life easier, not really easier. So yeah, they hold a lot of knowledge in there, but the perception of them, I think it's important that they have to know that, hey, what they have in them is really valuable, and it can be environmental first, and then society, and then economy can come after, because with that we have plenty of fish to sell after, whatever. But without understanding the first thing, environment, no, they're gonna stop, the fish gonna wait forever outside that door, you know. The people gonna go buy food at Carrefour, you know, which is fine, but no, we can do better.
Thank you so much for your answer. We have time for one more question only. Would anyone like to take a stab at climate and culture? Could be about anything. Anybody? then I have a question. So, a question from me, your moderator. I wonder, I know that to me, as a Thai person, Southeast Asia is a really unique region, but for someone who's not from Southeast Asia, how would you explain the uniqueness of our culture to them? And how would you explain why our ancestors are so adamant about its relevance to climate action?
For me, because I think the reason of that, I'm not sure, because I mean, I'm 26-ish, I'm not sure, like, not long enough to know, understand, and Ancestor, but the thing is that people, with the genealogy, like their genealogy, they have developed their own life in the different places of nature, and Southeast Asia happen to be the place where only Philippines is the mega biodiversity in the world. Like we have a lot of things in Vietnam, the lagoon and the biggest one, of course, and then a lot of beautiful nature up the hill in Laos and up north in Myanmar whatsoever. We have that, and then with that different group of people live in different places, different nature places. It's come with different collective memories, collective knowledge, collective wisdom to how to live in those different places in our region. For me, this general knowledge can apply elsewhere in the world. Right? You have to understand the nature of your place. We happen to have a lot, so that's why we have different showcases to show to the world. But yeah, to understand the collective knowledge, I think our ancestors have that as a key to live sustainably and keep that balance available for the next generation. But for us right now, man, we have to do a lot more than our ancestors right now, because something that we have done might distracted that balance already. We don't have that balance in the world anymore. That's why we have been suffering. We have this COP for how many times? 28, no? We may have more and more to talk about this, because with this showcase in Southeast Asia, with the knowledge collected, how to live in that place, it's simple as that, but we need more hands on it to understand what the people in the past have, so that we can live sustainably in the future, knowing what the condition of the place is. Yeah.
Anyone else would like to add?
I will present you Laos. Laos is simply beautiful. We have a lot of resources, a natural resource and cultural resource. Natural resource, you can feel the Blue Lagoon water in Wang Vieng district. And we also have Quang Si waterfall in Luang Prabang. Not all that, we also have wildlife experience in Nam At Pulei as well. Talking about the culturals, exploring the falling of crowds at the 5 a.m. in the morning with the alms giving, and also the people living style for the local weaving, local drying in Luang Prabang. This is, I would like to imagine with you about the tourism in Southeast Asia, especially in Laos and in Luang Prabang, where I come from. So if the climate is changed, the weather is not the same, we gonna not have the naturals, we gonna don't have this cultural. So this is I would like to present to you how the cultural in Southeast Asia with your awareness of the climate section. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. Any last words?
Yeah, sure. For those of you who are not from Southeast Asia, or even if you are, Southeast Asia, it's definitely one of, if not the most unique regions in the world. We have a lot of influences. We have Sinitic influences, so Chinese influence, we have Hindu influences from our west, and we have Austronesian influences from the Pacific. So we are very diverse, and I would say that we are characterized by our very close relationship to the sea and the ocean, except for our landlocked friend in Laos, sorry. But we are also very close to our mountains. North of Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar, we have a mountainous region called the Somia region, where there is incredible language diversity, where a lot of our hill tribes reside. And just our ancestors have been living with this incredible biodiversity and a lot of knowledge of learning how to deal with the sea, the typhoon, because all the trade routes are in the sea. So I would say that we are definitely equipped with valuable and irreplaceable knowledge when it comes to dealing with climate change and mitigation.
Liza?
Southeast Asia is not just famous for the beaches. We're really aware of that. Whether you go to Thailand, to the Philippines, I'm about to say Laos, but it's landlocked, so I'm sorry. But we are beyond the beaches. We have a wealth of tangible and intangible cultural heritage elements. We keep on repeating this, but we hope that you come and visit so that you'd be aware about that, but also recognizing that it's not just about recognizing this wealth of knowledge, but also how do we actually really integrate this wealth of knowledge into efficient actions that would actually transform into sustainable climate actions and solutions. Because as what Maisa said, this is COP28. Next year there's going to be COP29, there's going to be COP30. But each time, is it just going to be about conversations? Is it just going to be about discourses? About the very same people who talk about the same things, fighting for the same advocacies. But perhaps it really, of course, these are very important to have these dialogue. But also it would be extremely valuable that all of these conversations will really be transformed into concrete actions so that as years go by, maybe the COP conversations would be less and it will be more COP actions. So there we are.
Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to close by thanking our sponsors and co-chairs. First of all, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Climate Heritage Network, the Petra National Trust, our partners at Julie's Bicycle International National Trust Organization, the Thailand Pavilion, the Indonesia Pavilion, UNESCO Greening Education Hub, as well as our sponsors, Education and Public Welfare Foundation, the Rotary Club Bangrak Thailand, individual donors from crowdfunding, including the Siam Society Council members and the CICHA directors. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you have the great rest of the day at COP28. Thank you.
Thank you.